God's truth. I submit to you, God's commandments, His laws, and His statutes have been from the beginning. And that Satan came along afterwards to duplicate them, or to try to do away with them, or to try to exchange them for something else. Very important quote from John Rittenbar. There is much that we do that has its counterpart in false religion. And it is so close that to the undiscerning eye, they're not going to be able to tell the difference. End of quote. Yes, that is very true, brethren. And I submit to you, yes, that Easter and Easter Sunday is so close, and in some years it's right at the very time of the Passover and the days of unleavened bread, that it is so close in many ways to the truth of God, that only the discerning eye, only those that are really searching for the truth are going to be able to see the difference in between keeping Easter and keeping Passover. Only those that are searching for the truth of God are going to see the difference between keeping Sunday, which is right next to Saturday, the seventh day of the week, right next to it. Only those searching for the truth and a discerning eye are going to see the difference in the eyes of God of why we should not be keeping Sunday and we should be keeping Saturday. Because they are so close to each other, right next to one another, that most people can't see it. Most people say, what difference does it make? It doesn't matter. Keep one day in 7. I am still worshiping God. He will still accept my worship on that day. My heart is right, isn't it? Don't I have, the right kind of attitude? I'm going to go off to church. I'm going to praise God. I'm going to read His Word. I'm going to let the minister preach to me. Don't I have the right mind and attitude? So Sunday is okay. Isn't that the same kind of reasoning that we see with a lot of these religious festivals? So close to the truth, most people cannot discern that it makes any difference. So many people can't discern that setting up a religious festival of thanksgiving out of the imagination of man's mind, based upon old traditions and customs and pagan rites of the ancients, most people can't see where that makes any difference, as opposed to keeping God's harvest festival, the Feast of Tabernacles. Most won't be able to see where it matters. What's the big fuss about? God will accept. God will accept it. Does He really? Quoting again from Mr. Rittenbar, now I am sure, now he says, now I am sure that what God expressly forbids is the observance of pagan festivals which were intended as deliberate substitutes for the plan and the program of God. God is certainly against deliberate substitutes for the plan and the program of God. And I'm going to prove as we go along more here that this Thanksgiving festival set up by men is a deliberate substitute for the plan and the truth of God, and a deliberate substitute for God's harvest festival, which is the Feast of Tabernacles, and that they have deliberately turned their eyes away from the Bible, away from God's truth and Word, and to find out what God has to say, and when His religious harvest festival is, that they have deliberately put that to one side, and they have substituted with a festival out of their own mind and heart, and in fact even based upon paganism. So yes, God is definitely against that. But it is not just substitution that God is against. Deuteronomy chapter 12. Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter, beginning in verse 29. When the Eternal your God shall cut off the nations which is before you, where you go to possess them, and you succeed them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself that you be not snared by following them, after that they be destroyed from before you, and that you inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. In other words, I will... Isn't that quaint? Isn't that nice? They serve their God with this little festival or that little festival. That's kind of quaint and nice. I think that I can take that and I can adopt it and serve my God with that. Verse 31, you shall not do so unto the Eternal your God, for every abomination to the Eternal which he hates have they done unto their gods, for even their sons and their daughters have they burned in the fire to their gods. Notice verse 32, brethren, as far as an official, religious festivals that are designated and invented and established to worship God on and to serve God on, as far as that goes, what does God say? What things soever I command you, observe to do it. You shall not add thereto, nor diminish from it. Amen. You will not do away with my festivals, and you will not add religious festivals to worship me on. That's what that verse is saying, brethren. That you will not look at these nations round about and say, isn't that a quaint religious festival? I think I will take that and add it to all that God has given me, and we'll have another religious festival to worship God on, and we'll close down. We won't do any physical work. We'll close down the stores. We will tell everybody in the nation that they're not to work. The shops will close down, and everything will go on hold. And we'll open the church doors, and the ministers will come out and they'll preach and they'll teach, and we will worship God on that festival time that we have borrowed from all of these other little nations around here. God says we will not do that. Let me point out to you, brethren, some of the festivals that our nation keeps and